Andrew from Orlando says, do you think a video game crash could happen again? Could gamers lose faith and turn away from games like they did in the 80s, or are games in the hands of so many more people and so much more diversified that it would be unlikely they ever crash again? Thanks.
At this point, definitely not. The game industry is going to go up forever. Forever. It's just like houses.
I think that, to think about that, like, you have to think about what the crash really did to games when it originally happened in like 83, 84, or whatever it was. Like,
it was mostly everything in one basket, right? Like, it was more like Atari just kind of came in and...
Like, Atari was a fad the same way the Wii was. Mm-hmm. And at some point, they started pumping out such shit games that the economics didn't work anymore.
Well, at some point, the Wii was also like one of the top-selling consoles in that generation, though. So
Yeah. And there was no quality control on the 2600. Anyone could make games for it. So you had Custer's Revenge. There was no license.
Okay.
Atari tried to sue Activision for making games for the 2600 and lost. So that paved the way for third parties to exist. And basically you ran into cases where as video games became really popular, you had these companies that had no knowledge of video games just getting into the business because they heard it was hot and shipping shit for the 2600. So it oversaturated the market with fucking garbage, which kind of killed off the fad-like nature of video games with the mainstream, and all that stuff kind of went away. Arcades kind of crashed not long after because, for much the same reason. You had a lot of bad shit out there, and people, once they were sour on home video games, they weren't necessarily going out to arcades to do it either. The thing that happened, though, is computers. Everyone that was still cared about video games in, the kind of the time between the 2600 and the Nintendo, basically they were getting Atari 800s and Commodore 64s, and I had both at some point. Like I got a C64, and I played Pools of Radiance and Hills Far, and all these just insanely fucking deep games compared to what you were getting on the 2600. And, for me, like, I never stopped playing games. I was still going to arcades and stuff. When you hear Mark Cerny talk about it, he talks about the sequel to Marble Madness that never came out, Marble Man. They made it a 3-player game. I believe it was 3-player. Specifically because it created the opportunity for them to get 3 quarters at the same time. Huh. And that a lot of those Konami brawlers and Gauntlet and a lot of that stuff that was these kind of big multiplayer games were solely, in some cases, largely created specifically because they wanted to get more money out of people. That was something that, as the games got more and more focused around sucking quarters out of people's pockets, that accelerated kind of some parts of the crash, which is weird because I like Gauntlet, but it's absolutely true that game is ridiculous in terms of just like the quarters you put into it. And so, basically, yeah, people went to computers where the games were richer and deeper and more expansive, even if the graphics weren't always as good in some cases.
We're getting to the point now, and this, well, not to go back to the game crash, but I don't know. I think the end of this console generation will be really interesting in terms of what precisely the next consoles are going to bring to the table that people can't get in very cheap PC form.
Yeah.
The last 10 years, it's been PC gaming was a joke in 2002,
totally
2004,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then Microsoft basically gave up on PC gaming for a long time. They kind of still have, but the last 5 years, Steam popped up and started making it. Hey, I can download this and play it today, which it wasn't an option on a lot of the older consoles and stuff. And it's getting to the point where I still enjoy the process of booting up a console and playing a game, but in another 8 years when these things are winding down, or 6 years or whatever, it's going to be...
For me, it's a power thing. You think about the generations of hardware that launched, traditionally you would see the consoles come out and they would be a step ahead of where the PC was at.
Yep.
And
this was one of the first ones where... when the 360 came out, a lot of that stuff started blowing people's minds, and mine as well. But then I think this kind of first generation where a lot of people with mid-range PCs could match whatever the PS4 or...
Yeah, I mean, the PS4 and the Xbox One are more or less mid-range PCs.
Yeah.
So, you can do better.
You can't play Warcraft on a...
Yeah, that's true. But, but even with, if we're just matching games, Shadow of Mordor, if
sure.
we're, and that's where the stuff where you look at the Steam sales and stuff like that. And, you have the initial increased outlay of cash to build a PC.
Sure.
But once you're there, the games are often cheaper, more frequently, and they look better.
Yeah.
You lose out on the exclusives, but those are increasingly just like kind of who cares. And also, neither of the console manufacturers take the PC into account in this competition for whatever reason.
Yeah. Console exclusive.
So you start to wonder then. I think there's always going to be a class of consumer that don't understand how PCs work and don't want to.
Sure.
They're scared of them. They think that like, oh, I'll break it. I don't know how to do it. So it's one of those things that I think paves the way for something like a Steam box.
Mm-hmm.
But I think them going Linux focused kind of takes the wind out of the sales of the actual Steam box.
Anything actually happened to those Steam boxes? Like, do they ship anything? They shipped one, I think.
Maybe.
They ever ship that controller, or do they go back to the drawing board on that?
No, they don't. They have not shipped the controller.
I know they went back to the drawing board and got rid of all that haptic stuff. But it's weird.
But it's
So if even Steam can't figure out like a good third, dude, Ouya 2 coming out. That already did come out, didn't it? Or did they kickstart that?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
But the crash kind of ended when Nintendo came to market in '85 when they came to the North American market. And the thing that they did is they put lockout chips in their hardware to basically prevent unlicensed third parties from just making shit. And so that's where the whole seal of approval, the seal of quality came from. Like Nintendo was limiting the number of games people could ship in a year.
Wow.
Because they wanted to prevent the 2600 thing from happening again. It was very smart on their behalf, or very smart on their part to like recognize the issues that led to video games going away, or console video games. The problems with that market. They were very smart to address that stuff, but. Now things are a little different, and I don't think we'll see a crash. I think games are too diverse and spread across too many different demographics, and got Facebook games and mobile games and all this other stuff that are that don't even necessarily appeal to the same player base.
Yeah, so I think you'll see specific stuff crashing, like the when you put $1 billion into Candy Crush Saga. You see what happened to who's that other big mobile publisher? I forget. Zynga, and the people behind the mobile games that get really huge.
Yeah.
They always seem to like, we're going to make this $1 billion a year forever, and then they kind of always seem to fade away after a while. So the mobile gaming stuff was always like people are always looking at the iPhone like, hey, goodbye game consoles. We're all going to play games on our phones in 5 years. And that really hasn't happened yet, at least not to me. I know maybe in Japan it's a big deal, but. I don't know. That's another big threat to think about for consoles. Like when
I think the thing is like if are phones creating players? Are phones creating long-term people that care about the hobby and go on to buy a console?
Yeah.
Are people graduating from phone games to more complex things on other platforms or not?
Hope so.
Like that's the kind of the.
There are a lot of people getting paid a lot of money to do these research things, and I don't pay the $10,000 for these reports, so I don't really know.
Exactly. So
that's what I should be doing.
Yeah, you should be paying $10,000 for these
I should
reports.
be.
Yeah.
I should be writing them, selling them on eBay.
Yeah. Let's see here. Logan in Oklahoma City says, what do you think of the new WoW expansion?